As organizations prepare for CMMC, the first question they need to answer is what controlled unclassified information, or CUI, they have. This will determine the scope of information systems that process, store, or transmit CUI. In an ideal world, the government marks all CUI when it flows to contractors. As it flows down to subcontractors, it gets marked again. Sounds pretty simple. However, anyone within the defense industrial base, or DIB, will tell you that identifying CUI is a significant hurdle. The easy solution to that hurdle is just giving everything you work with this designation, right? Well, overstating CUI significantly increases the cost for compliance across more information systems. So, unless you want to take on more overhead costs, this probably isn't the solution. But what should you do? Hi everyone, I'm Matt from eTactics, and today I'm going to explain the what, how, and when of controlled unclassified information, or CUI. Before we get started though, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the button below. While you're down there, hit that alert bell icon next to it as well, so when we post new helpful content, you get notified. The first question that needs answers is, what is CUI? Unclassified information exists throughout the executive branch of the United States government that requires any kind of safeguarding or dissemination control. Executive Order 13556 defined CUI in November 2010 as information that law, regulation, or government-wide policy requires to have safeguarding or disseminating controls. Now that we know what CUI is definition-wise, we need to figure out the answer to the question, what isn't CUI? CUI doesn't include information classified under Executive Order 13526 or the Atomic Energy Act. This includes any information classified as top secret, secret, or confidential. Information that a non-executive branch entity possesses that didn't come from or wasn't created or possessed by an executive branch agency or an entity acting on their behalf is also excluded. CUI doesn't include information lawfully or publicly available without restrictions. Publicly disclosed information may not be subsequently designated or redesignated as CUI. Of course, when we're talking about CUI, a few other acronyms might get thrown into the mix. CTI and CDI. So what is the relationship between CUI and those two other acronyms? These terms often appear in different places and may cause some confusion about the relationship. Controlled technical information, or CTI, is a category of CUI that's technical information with military or space application that's subject to controls on access, use, reproduction, modification, performance, display, release, disclosure, and dissemination. Covered defense information, or CDI, is CTI or other information as described in the CUI registry that requires safeguarding or disseminating controls according to law, regulations, and government-wide policies. Simply put, CDI is CUI and CTI is a category of CUI. So, who designates CUI? Determining whether or not information qualifies for CUI status falls on the originator. If they do determine that it qualifies, they're also responsible for applying the appropriate markings. However, all of this doesn't entirely prevent marking modifications. Officials higher in the chain of command or functional experts might also apply additional markings. How is CUI designated? Designating CUI occurs when an authorized holder determines that a specific item of information falls into a category or subcategory requiring markings and or dissemination instructions. Authorized holders can be individuals, agencies, organizations, or a group of users permitted to designate or handle CUI. The National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA, acting as the executive agent, or EA, approves categories and subcategories and publishes the National CUI Registry. Agencies may use only what's approved by the EA. From there, they put in place corresponding safeguarding or dissemination controls. The last common question that gets asked regarding CUI is, what are some examples of CUI? I'll answer that question by posing a few others to you. Is an invoice generated by a contractor working on a project involving CTI considered CUI? An invoice is an administrative or contract document. As long as that invoice doesn't include technical information, it doesn't need a designation. Now, does an email from one colleague to another who are both working on a project involving CUI meet the designation? An email is a general correspondence. If the contents or attachments of the email contain technical information, then the email meets the designation. Now that you know how to identify what is CUI and you can filter out what isn't CUI, the next step is to find it. CUI may exist on servers, desktops, laptops, and tablets all across your organization. Identifying all these systems that contain or have access to CUI is time consuming. The use of an intelligent agent may help streamline the process of identifying where this data exists and confirming where it doesn't. Because these types of tools can also identify system configurations and software installed, we can also start to automate the process of gathering objective evidence and storing it in a compliance tracking solution. If you'd like to learn more about identifying CUI, reach out to eTactics. And you already made it this far into the video, so you might as well like it, share it, and comment below. Well, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to our YouTube channel.